My name's Hoda Ali and I'm a nurse, but right now I'm working in schools as a FGM safeguarding manager to implement FGM and the law within schools. I'm from Somalia, so at the age of 7 years old, we started getting ready for me to be cut. Now, when this happens in Somalia, we were never hidden. It was something to celebrate. It was, you know, you're gonna be cut, you're gonna have circumcision, because in Somalia they call it gudnin. And gudnin is, when you translate it in English, is circumcision. One day we woke up and it was like, you got a party. And I remember that morning we wake up, we had a party, we had our hair done, we had a henna done. That's the first time I got a watch as a gift. But you don't know what is in store for you. So for me, it was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna be a woman soon. So it's something to celebrate. That is how we were for us. Next morning, this woman walked in. She had the hijab and she had a big material over it. And she said to me, Hoda, so you know that your little sister is gonna go first? Because when you have an FGM in Somalia, the younger ones go first. So she's like, I want you to be strong for her, and I want you to make sure you do not cry. Make sure you're strong for her. And for me, now looking back as an adult, I realized that at the age of 7, I became a woman for my little sister, just to make sure that I was strong for her and I was supporting her. So this woman had a needle and a syringe and a medication. But she's not a nurse, she's not a midwife, she's just the famous cutter. So that woman who cut my sister at the age of 17 and come to me now as a 7-year-old, she was very old. She was an old person, but everybody respected her. Nobody speak to her, nobody talk about her. When she comes in, it's like the queen came in. It was like respect for them. I remember, it was like when you go to the dentist, I felt the needle going inside me. And the pull and the tug and my body shaking, and they were like pushing me and they were pulling me and they were pushing me and they were pulling me. And I remember that is the main thing I always remember. And after that, it was just silent. And it was like, now you're a woman. You had FGM. You can play with your friends, you can go to school, nobody's gonna bully you, you're gonna get a good husband. And that was that. And then one night, I just could not sleep anymore. I was getting abdominal pain, which I didn't know what it was. All I know that I was in pain and I couldn't sleep. But what happened at that moment was the civil war started in Mogadishu as well. So we were in a war-zone country. And I'm sick. So Daddy went out to look for a hospital. And after they investigated and they asked me what was wrong, they said to me, right, we're gonna give you a scan. We need to scan your stomach and see what's going on. And after I had this scan, it was, oh, she's got a cyst. And every time I have a scan, I remember looking at the shadow, because you're looking through the glass, the monitor. So before they can even say anything, I knew what they were gonna say. And it's like, oh, the shadow is getting bigger, the cyst is getting bigger, we need to operate her. And they took me to the theater. They opened me up and they told me and my parents, there was blood just shooting out of my stomach. But only when they cleaned me out, they realized that they didn't do no damage to me. It was actually my period that was accumulating inside due to my FGM. I had type 3 FGM. At the age of 7 and at the age of 11, I'm in hospital finding out what was wrong with me, to the point doctors told me, oh, you had your period and it's not coming out, so we need to sort this out. So what they did is that the first thing they did was to come out of the hospital and from the theater and speak to my parents and said, well, this is what's happened. Your daughter had FGM type 3. Her period is not coming out due to the small hole that is left. And do we have the permission to open her? And of course, my mom and dad want the best for me. So they said, go ahead. The doctors, they open me up. Now, when they open me up, it's not like they're gonna give back of what was left, what was taken away from me, but all they did was just to open the stitches. So type 3 is total removal of the clitoris, the labia minora, the labia majora. They pull the skin together, they stitch it all the way down until they leave us with a very small hole that is no bigger than a matchstick. Now that little hole that is no bigger than matchstick is where we're supposed to pass urine when you get your period, to have your menstrual monthly period, and when you get married, it's your husband to open you up. So basically, the night of the marriage, the man will come and they will force themselves on these women and girls, because a lot of girls be married off a very young age as well. And of course, that is when the 3rd-degree test comes and all the medical problems comes. But anyway, after that operation, they told me, right, Hoda, wait for your next cycle. And of course, 4 weeks, I'm in hospital waiting for my next cycle, nothing. And they operated me again. But now, after the 2nd operation in Mogadishu, the civil war got so bad, the part of the hospital was getting bombed. My uncle was coming to see me in the hospital, and he got killed. A missile landed on him, and they never find his body. So for me, while I'm in hospital, I'm trying to actually take into an account of what was happening to me. I couldn't even think of it because I was in a surviving mode. I have to survive. Me and my dad have to survive. Because this time my mom, my sisters, my brothers, they already left because of the war, but I couldn't travel with them because of me having an operation. Then when the doctors say we got to go, it wasn't easy to get a flight out of the country. So Daddy found this little airplane, and I remember I can hear the gunshots going around my head. But I was holding my stomach and to get to the plane on the other side. And we made it. We went to Djibouti, which is a little island of Somalia. So what happened is that we arrived, and straight away I was taken from the airport to the hospital. And I had another ultrasound, and the shadow was there. And this time the doctor said, I'm going to call a professor in Milan to see what he can say to help me. She called him. And I really, really mean it when I say I'm the luckiest girl alive, because that professor decided to come to Djibouti for 48 hours. But what happened on that operation was that the professor who came to see me from Italy to Djibouti told the medical student to do certain procedure, and that resulted me having damage to my bladder. So now at the age of, I'll say about 15, I'm in hospital and I'm continent. So what they did was they said, in order for you not to wet yourself, we're going to put a catheter into your bladder. But I survived the war twice, remember? And I'm the luckiest girl alive. So I have to find a solution. So when they used to give me a day release, I used to ask them for a bandage. Catheter bag have little holes at the top and underneath and the bottom as well. So I used to put this string through and tie it on my leg, and then tie it there, wear my clothes, and nobody knew I was incontinent. So we waited for 4 weeks or 5 weeks, and nothing, no period came. Dr. Graziella came in again and she said, Hoda, you've been operated about 4 times now, and we're not going to operate you again, but we're going to send you to Italy. I never had a childhood. I wanted to play on the beach. I wanted to go and play with my friends. So for me, it was like, I'm going to get better. I'm going to be sent to Europe. I'm going to have this operation. I'm going to get better, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to play with my friends, and I'm going to do all those things that I didn't do. I was 11 years old when I went to hospital, and at the age of 17, after many, many operations, 3 different countries. At the age of 17, I got my period naturally. So you understand why I said I'm the luckiest girl alive. I remember looking at my dad and I was like, let's travel the world. But at this time, we couldn't go back to Somalia. We become refugees. So we got to leave. And I remember my dad, God bless him, make everything as normal as you could. So we hired a car because I said, let's travel the world. And we traveled through Europe. So we didn't travel the world, but we did travel through Europe. And of course, Daddy's thinking about his family he left behind. We left my sisters, my brothers, my mom, everybody behind. So Daddy left me in Holland. And just before my 18th birthday, I ended up in a refugee camp in Holland. But all I wanted was that when I realized that now I'm a refugee and I can't go back home, was I'm gonna go to England. I'm gonna go and see my sister. And the first thing I did was I need to learn English. I always wanted to learn English even when I was a little girl anyway, because everybody in my family spoke Italian and English and Arabic, and you know, I'm like, I need to learn English. So yeah, I went to college. I learned and I learned English. As I was learning English, 2 years later, about 2.5 years later, we moved to London. And I said to my sister, I'm gonna go and look for a job. Remember what I said, I am the luckiest girl alive, because I found a job and I find my future husband. But before we get married, I have to explain to my future husband what FGM was. And I want you to, for a moment, to please breathe. Because FGM was done to me to prove to my future husband that I was a virgin. FGM is done to control women's sexuality, and it was to control my sexuality. It was for me to explain to that future husband I never had sex. But imagine now, he's British Caribbean, he don't know nothing about. So I am sitting on the other side now, explaining to him what FGM is, why does it happen, why I have to go through this, and explain that. So we passed that. And we got married. And then 2 years after we got married, I'm thinking, we're not using any contraception, so why are we not getting pregnant? So I went back to the gynecologist and I said to her, Dr. So-and-so, this is what's happening, this is what I need to find out why. And she's like, oh, Hoda, okay, we're gonna do some more investigation. And after the investigation, she said, well, we can't really explain other than all the operations that you had. But what we're gonna do is that we're offering you IVF. But in my head, I wasn't ready. It was like, if I get pregnant, of course, it would be natural and stuff. But for me, when it comes to IVF, it brings all that memory back, because like I got to be in a hospital. I'm gonna have to go in the theater again. They're gonna have to open my legs. They're gonna have to do this. It's mentally, I wasn't ready. And a year later, we had IVF. I got pregnant for the first cycle. And I miscarried the day before my first scan, which is 6 weeks. But when I miscarried, I ended up in ITU, intensive care unit. Because what happened is that my organs were shutting down. I had pelvic infection, and the infection just went everywhere. And that is when I ended up in hospital for 7 weeks. And I thought, okay, we're gonna go through another IVF, but I just need my body to get strong. I just want my body to be able to fight and to be strong. So after I put weight on, I went back to the gynae and I said, we are ready for another cycle. But somehow I was always prepared for bad news. And the embryologist came and he said, I'm really, really sorry. We took all 5 embryos in different times and none of them survived. So that means we cannot transfer any embryos to you. I was like, for a second, I was like, okay, well, tomorrow is another day. I can do another IVF. And he said, I'm gonna go and get you the doctor now. I'm just the embryologist. And he left. He got the doctor in. And the doctor came in and was like, okay, Dr. So-and-so, so embryos didn't survive, but last time you got 6 eggs, 6 embryos, you transferred 1, other 5 didn't survive, so now I want to go for another IVF. And that's when she turned around and she said to me, Hoda, I'm really sorry, I've been doing this for over 35 years. And I never said this to any of my patients, but I cannot do IVF on you. Because if we do another IVF on you, it can kill you. And for a moment, for a second, it was like something in my brain just went, just like that. It was like a switch that just switched. I can't talk. I'm sitting there. It was like my body was there, my brain was there. I can hear, but I just couldn't speak. And my husband said, it's okay, doctor. My wife is not going to die for a child we don't have yet. And I think for any woman who's watching this, to have the support of your husband, of your brother, of your father, or even your mom and your sister, but to have the support of the man who loved you at that moment, it gave me the hope. And I remember at that, like just hearing that, it was like just looking at him, and I started talking. And it was from that moment we decided we're not going to have another IVF, we're not going to have an egg donor, we're going to adopt. Because there's so many different ways to be a mom and dad. I don't have to carry a child to be a mom. My FGM medical journey, gynecologist, from age of 11 to age of 31 ended. Because when I was told I cannot have a child, I was 31 years old. And that is the day that I decided I dedicated my life to save the future generation. Because as you can see, my story and what I'm saying is that I was cut to prove to a man that I was virgin. And I ended up marrying a man who is not even from the practicing community. So for me, at that moment, I become the voice for the voiceless. I can become the voice for my nieces. I become the voice for my neighbors. I become the voice for every single woman who came from the practicing community, who went through what I went through, but do not have the courage to speak. If men come out from the practicing community and say we do not want our woman to be cut, or I will not marry a woman who is cut, I promise you FGM will end within generation. Every 10 seconds, there's a little girl who gone through FGM. Imagine while you are watching this film, how many girls are cut somewhere in the world. There are 200 million women and girls living with the consequences of FGM, and I am one of them.